Hey there, and welcome to the Flourish and Health podcast. My name is Stephanie, and I'm so glad that you are here. Well, today you're in for an awesome treat because today I have two of my wonderful besties with me today. My friends Autumn and Lee are here today with us, and I'm excited for us just to have a conversation. We get to do life together. Far apart in distance, but close together in community. And so I'm so excited that we get to talk today. We're going to share a little bit about a brave experience that we all attended a few weeks ago, and who else knows what else will come up. But I'm excited to have you meet them and enjoy our conversation together. So let me just introduce you real quick, and we'll go from there. So first, Autumn, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello, thank you so much. It's such an honor to be on this podcast with you today, Stephanie. My name is Autumn. I actually live in Glendale, Arizona, and I have known Stephanie for about 5 years. We met through our coaching, and it's just been so awesome just getting to grow and become like a great friend. So thankful for you.
Wow, awesome. I so appreciate you. And I can't imagine, it's hard to remember life without knowing both of you guys. So, Lee, you're next.
My name is Lee, and I live in Manassas, Virginia, and enjoying this fall season that is upon us very, very much. And I have been friends with Stephanie through our coaching community for probably over 5 years, and a big fan of her Flourish and podcast. And I know that I look forward to listening to it every week. So I'm pretty excited to be a part of it today. Thank you very much for inviting.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. So it's going to be hard because we are so used to having this big conversation with each other and just talking. So we're going to try to make sure we hone it in a little bit and not, but bring you along with our friendship. And I think one of the biggest things is we all talked about, our coaching community, and that's really what brought us together. And that community is huge. And I think that has been one of my favorite parts. I've talked about it before, about the changes that I made in my life with my health, and then in stepping into coaching, and not only working on this mindset piece, which is huge, which will probably come up a little bit today, but also that community and just those friendships that are dear, and people like Autumn and Lee that challenge me every day, that are able to step in and say, hey, maybe rethink that, or offer a different perspective on that. So I appreciate both of them. So I would love just to have a conversation today about maybe some of the takeaways or things that we experienced at the brave experience that we went to go visit Autumn in the Scottsdale area. She's a little outside of her area too, but we got to hang out together and go to this experience. And it was just wonderful. It's hard to put into words. I think the way that we were grown and stretched as we walk through the weekend. And so I would just love, let's just have a conversation. Maybe what was one of the biggest takeaways that each of you had, or whatever. Let's just get this conversation started. So whoever wants to start, jump on in. Hi, and welcome to the Flourish and Health podcast. My name is Stephanie Book, and I am so glad you are here. My hope is to help others see their life beyond where they currently are right now, move away from places where they feel stuck, and empower them to move into a flourishing life. Together, we will learn to recognize our true identity in Christ and apply a reframed mindset to combat the lies that we've been believing about ourselves. We will walk the journey of flourishing in our health, in mind, body, and our connection with God. I'm so excited to walk this journey with you as we create new habits of thinking and turn toward a life that is flourishing.
I know for me, one of the things that we learn and have grown into is you're most like the five people that you surround yourself with. Well, you're in Ohio, you're in Arizona, and I'm in Virginia. But we are in community with each other through our friendship and the community that we are a part of. But being together in a community of followers and leaders that were pouring into us, I just felt elevated in learning and growing, and gratitude, a lot of gratitude. And it was really neat to be actually living an experience of you are like the five people that you most surround yourself with. And I was looking around going, there are authors and speakers and leaders and pastors and business women. And it was a very empowering time to be a part of. And it was pretty special.
Oh, I so agree. Yeah, that's a great way to put it because that community, I didn't think about it expanding just like our little community, but then moving into that big community and surrounding it. A lot of people got to meet, a lot of women got to meet other amazing women, and those connections and friendships were able to be started. You know, we got to meet a girl from Alaska that went all the way from Alaska to Arizona for the conference, and that was just so cool to be able to see how community and really, and when you bring in Christ in there, obviously, then that it magnifies that as well as we come together as women and as believers and be able to draw closer together that way too. So I love that, Lee. What about you, Autumn?
Well, I couldn't agree more about the community piece. I know that this community has been an area that I had prayed for so long and didn't realize how much I needed and didn't realize that something like this was out there. And so, honestly, the community piece has been something that has absolutely healed me. And so when we went to this experience, I really didn't know what to expect. I just knew that I needed to be there. And I think that I have been in a season of my life right now, um, and where it's just like it's a lot of life has happened. And I don't know if there's a lot of people out there right now that can resonate that with that, but a lot of life has happened in this season. And it was just amazing to be able to come into this season and just um, surround myself with just like not just you ladies, but also just like just walking into that experience. And I think one of the huge things that really spoke out to me was like, wow, it's like you can just be going through life and things are going so great. And then boom, life can happen all of a sudden. And so there was one evening that it really spoke to me because it was like, okay, if I were the enemy, what would I do to take you out? And that was just so powerful just to kind of strip it down because it's like, oh, when you put it into that perspective of like, okay, yeah, because we know that in John 10:10 that it talks about, the enemy, coming to steal, kill, and destroy. And wow, it was kind of eye-opening because sometimes we don't think about those things of like, okay, like things are going great and then all of a sudden and it's like and so I think one of the biggest things like that was like a huge thing was like, oh, I know that for myself I can tend to just be so busy and I can be doing great things, but then I have gotten to a point where wow, like when life did hit me hard, it was like almost hard for me to stay on top of that schedule because I was going strong for so long. And I was like, wow, that's a tactic that the enemy uses to just cause us to be weary. And so something that has really been coming up for me a lot lately is just being able to be still and just sit with God and man, when you try to do that and you stop and just like, okay, you just look for that stillness. It's like, I don't know how many of you can relate, but there's like times where I'll have like this distraction or, oh, now I have a phone call or somebody needs something and you're trying to do great things, but it's like having that time to just spend with God. And so I think that was something that was really powerful for me was just taking that back to like, okay, I really just need to take it back to the heart of like, just like, okay, who's going to be, for taking it back to the one who actually can create that peace for me in that stillness. And one of my verses, I actually have like, I have this like everywhere. So I have like this little be still and know from Psalms 46:10, but that's one of my favorite verses. And it's amazing how I just need that reminder everywhere. So
Oh, I love that. And I think it was really interesting as we were preparing to go to this event, how many different things were coming at each of us in our own way, and the obstacles, some of the just some hard days or things that, like you said, the boom, like one minute it's good, the next minute, boom, something shifts. And I felt like we all were experiencing that as we were getting prepared to go to this, because I think that there were big things for us to hear and to experience while we were there. And so the enemy was definitely, I think, trying to bring up all the excuses of why this might not work out for us. So I loved once I got there, and I just was like, God had some big plans. We kept saying he must really have a big plan for us if we were, dealing with all these obstacles. And I mean, the time that we spent there it was just time of growth, a time of stillness, a time of reflection, forgiveness, like just so many different things that was healing for my heart as I walked through the whole weekend. And of course, it went by way too fast, but it was just powerful. And one of the things that I think it's 23 and 24, and I can't remember exactly because I should have wrote it down here, but when he's challenging, he says, if you can do this thing, and Jesus is like, if I can, no, he can do these things. And so that surrender of not trying to hold on to the things myself and do things on my own, or trying to make things fit into a mold that I want it to fit in, but know that God can do big things. And I think I say that often, that he puts these desires in our heart. And I really do believe that those come, those things that we want to do and we want to move forward to and grow into, those things come in our heart, but then we get in the way of letting God do what he can. And he can. It's not if he can, it's when he will do those things. And so that I have that written down. I just didn't bring it into my office, but of those verses. And I've been trying to read through that every day. So that was a big takeaway, but so many different things. So, what else? What is something that you think would serve those that are listening today? It's something that a message maybe that you want to tell each person that's listening today. I mean, we've already talked about a lot, but what comes to your mind? Either of you can jump in. I know
Something that I really appreciated and was a very good reminder is we had a very special worship service before each event, Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday. And so coming to the Lord in gratitude, and even though there was a lot of stuff going on before we got there, but having that time of entering this time in a state of gratitude and was very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And so my takeaway was, how can I bring that gratitude forward with me when it may not be the first thought, but it's in my heart. So just speaking it out loud.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I think that we know that when we bring gratitude in, then we're not, those negative thoughts can't penetrate us when the gratitude is flowing. And so why we sometimes forget to jump into that, it's not our first response, but if it is our first response, then it kind of negates all those other things, because it just brings it so much more towards the light and towards what God is doing for us and in us. So that's awesome. I love that. What about you, Autumn? Anything else?
I think as you were just saying that, Lee, like the song by Tasha Layton came up, is Worship Through It. And I think just going back to the season that I've been in, like I lost my grandma, who was like a second mom to me. And I didn't realize like grief comes in weird ways. And it's been a season where it's like I've always been the cheerleader, and I've always been so peppy and upbeat and encouraging everybody. And so I think for me, it was kind of like, well, wait a second, how can I like be in this season where I'm grieving, but I can also I can also have joy. And I think that was a great reminder to be able to just like, oh, those can both coexist. And it's just kind of worshiping through that and knowing that like, okay, like God's got me in the palm of his hands and I'm already enough where I'm at and I don't have to be all these things. He hasn't called me to that. And so I think just knowing that both grief and joy can coexist and because I think I was really beating myself up prior to this was like, okay, wow, why can't I be where I was before? And it's just learning to live through those seasons. And so I think it just takes it back to that whole gratitude of just like, okay, like, you know, of just being thankful for, God being there with us during those seasons. And so, and just, there's just so many things to be grateful for when you like just look around. It's just, we just have to stop and pause and just notice those things.
Mm. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think it makes me think of, and again, I'm terrible at references, remembering where they're at, but when they were talking about being thankful in all circumstances, but not for, and I think that a lot of times we hear that, like be thankful for all circumstances, but it doesn't say for all, but in all, because of what the growth that it's bringing into us, like it's God is providing for us. And so I think that was also freeing too, because I always used to think, oh, I have to be thankful for this and it's awful. Like, why would I be thankful for something that's so awful? But if I'm thankful in it, as I'm walking through it, it kind of shifts that focus of like that I'm focusing on what God is doing rather than, we talk about how it's happening, not happening to me, but it's happening for me. And we learned a lot about that in our coaching program. And I think that aligns so well with that verse is, we get to be thankful in those circumstances. And so it doesn't mean that it's easy. It doesn't mean we want those things to happen for sure, but it helps maybe that gratitude, it helps us shift that focus and it does make it it actually takes some of that burden that we're trying to put on ourselves to walk through it, I think, because I don't know about you guys, but I try to think, oh, I'm going to walk through this and strong and I've got this. And really, I think God wants me not to do that, but really just to lean on him, be real, be honest with where I'm feeling and just live that out. So, yeah, I love that. So,
Do you remember and I hadn't really heard it in this reference before, but I heard it throughout the event is, I am who you say I am,
mm-hmm,
and seeing how God sees me,
mm-hmm,
yeah, it's pretty special.
yeah, yeah. That's a good song. We sing that at my church often. It's a really good one. Good one to sing. Good one, a good reminder, for sure. I love that. Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this was from the weekend or if it might have been from our service, because I'm like, I think our pastor might have said this, but it was um just talking about like, wow, if we like actually like walked around knowing our true value that God has on us, like man, we wouldn't be walking around just kind of feeling like, oh, it's just we would walk around like, wow, like, you know, like there's just so much power in like the sacrifice that he had for us and like there's no greater sacrifice. And so just like thinking of that, like, wow, we're so valuable, but then there's so many times we forget that. Like we constantly need to know that value of like, oh, wow, like, so I thought that was really powerful, like just hearing that, like if we just walked around like knowing how valuable we are, like would we like walk around with more confidence and knowing like, hey, you know, so I don't know, that kind of like resonated with me as well. So I was like, I've been thinking about that a lot this week.
No, no, I love that. I think about the rock exercise that they had us do, and actually at church on Sunday, the pastor was talking about like writing a different name for yourself. He didn't have a rock, but he was talking about a white stone and the significance of the white stone and how it was like a ticket to the games, or it was like when you had the white stone, like that was like your pass to go into those places. And I just thought it was cool that he just talked about that on Sunday, where we just heard about that and where we got the opportunity to take a stone and I kind of rewrite the name that of who we are in Christ. And I just thought that was really cool. And so I was like, oh, I already did that when I was at church. I'm like, I got that now. So, but I thought that was good too, and I think for me, I put worthy, because that was an area where I've always, it's funny how as much as I've worked on and I tell everyone about how worthy they are and that Christ loves them and he's created them uniquely and he loves you, yet I still really need to remind myself of that as well. And sometimes I can lose sight of my value. Like you said, Autumn, like if I walked around knowing that I am worthy, that that God equipped me for amazing things and he loves me and he designed me just how I am. If I would walk around like that, I wouldn't be struggling with that so much. But I think that was a powerful exercise as well, to be able to remember that. And so I get to sit this rock on my desk and remind myself every time I sit down that, that I am worthy in his eyes. There's so many things for us to talk about, or it's hard to, again, I keep saying it's hard to be put into words. I keep saying, how was your weekend? I'm like, it was amazing. That's what I just kept saying, because it just filled me up so much, just exactly what I felt I needed. So what else? I want to make sure that we're sharing more.
Well, I think what was really cool too is just like, so after, when you talk about like how powerful the weekend was, it was almost just stripping us down to where like, okay, we're surrendering this to God. And then it was really cool because the next day was talking about, okay, now here are the weapons and the tools to really equip you to go forth. Because I think, we want to stay in that experience like, oh my goodness, this is amazing when we're all worshiping together and you just feel like, okay, yes, I can do this. But I don't know about for you, or it was almost like, so just like how they're going into the week, there was so many obstacles coming out of that kind of experience. When that God has a huge vision on your life, man, it was like almost like my mind was attacked. It was just kind of like where then all of those doubts and all that stuff started to creep back in. And I was like, well, wait a second. I just went through this experience. Like I thought things are going to be, but I think it's a constant surrender each day that we have to like be able to surrender ourselves. And that, the white stone was definitely that was a very, powerful thing too. And my word was value. And so kind of the same thing is just like, okay, so I've been thinking about that word value a lot. And it's just really surrendering that to God and like, okay, my value rests in him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. And I think the same thing, I came back and I didn't want to come back because there was a lot of life that you're going to come back to after you leave that. And I think a lot of those things, those old habits of thinking immediately started coming right back at me, and so it took me a little bit in a conversation with, messaging you ladies and then conversation with a mentor, just being like, okay, where do I need to refocus? And it was, again, another surrender, and it is a daily surrender. And so hopefully as I look at the stone each day, it'll remind me each day, like it's another chance to surrender. So, yeah. So, I don't know. It was just wonderful to be able to experience this with you ladies, and hopefully encourage some others that are listening to, first of all, find your tribe, find some people that you can do life with, people. And if you don't have that, come talk to us, because we have an amazing community that brought us together. And of course there's, my Flourish group and things where we can connect that way too. But I think, finding the people that are in your life that can encourage you, inspire you, and remind you of those things that you might forget along the way. Because I know that if I didn't have you ladies in my life, I might have put myself too much in that spiraling spot where I'm not really recognizing what God is saying about me, because sometimes you need that community. You need that reminder that, hey, let's refocus, let's shift, let's put some gratitude in there. Let's reframe that and see what God can do with what you're going through. Any last closing thoughts before we go?
It was a very special time to share with both of you, and that we were able to be in person with each other and laugh and giggle and, share from our hearts was a very memorable time.
Well, I love you, ladies, and I thank you so much for thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that those that are listening are encouraged. If you want to know, I know there's actually recordings for what we went to. Of course, it's not the same, but let me know, and I can get you hooked up to how you can get those. But most of all, I just encourage you to make sure that you stop and see your value. Walk around with that confidence, like Autumn was talking about, and you are worthy and capable of living a full and flourishing life. And I'm here. I'm with you. I'm praying for you. And I'm excited to see where God will take you. Take care. Thank you so much for joining me as we walk towards this life of flourishing. I appreciate you taking the time to listen and would love, love, love for you to take a moment to subscribe to my podcast and maybe even leave a review. Likes and reviews like yours will allow my podcast to be seen by others and hopefully help them as they walk through their own journey of growth. So until next time, please remember that you are amazing, my friend, and you are meant to live a life full and flourishing. Take care.